Howdy, folks. Happy Friday. Thank God it's Friday, although I know nobody is thanking God in Buffalo right now because we woke up with single-digit temperatures, and it's supposed to go down to 0 or below 0 tonight. How cold is it in your neck of the woods, Kev?
Yeah, we had single digits this morning. We're expecting last night. The only thing different I've noticed, like you guys just get killed in Buffalo, but you also talk about it a lot. Like we don't talk about the weather as much as you guys do. You know what I mean? And I get you get hammered, but
Yeah.
it's
the funny thing is Buffalo doesn't even get the most snow. Usually, in New York State, the most snow in New York, it's usually the Syracuse, Watertown area.
That's surprising.
Yeah, no, because it's east of Lake Ontario. So they get lake effect, and they get just as much or sometimes more than us. This year we gotten killed. We got the one right around Thanksgiving, and then the one on Christmas, and because what I think contributed to it, the Bills were good. So the fact that they moved a game to Detroit, and then the Blizzard game and this game, it was out there for everybody to see. So that maybe why it got mentioned so much.
I would say in my NHL career at USA Today, the places where I thought the weather was the most miserable, I would say Buffalo was only third. Yeah, I mean, I would say it was Winnipeg, was always just so cold.
Quebec City?
Yeah, Quebec City was cold. Edmonton, where you got to plug your cars in, like that's cold.
Edmonton in November at night was the coldest I ever was. And it's Heritage Classic.
It was just miserable. But the toughest walk, I always felt, was from the Bloomington Marriott across to the old Met Center. God, that was a brutal walk.
I wasn't there in the winter. I was only
there. Oh, my God. It was just, the wind would, you ended up like crossing kind of a highway, and so it was kind of buffered. So the wind would just howl down wherever that was. And, you just sort of put your head down and, kind of drove, when you walked over. Because it was, it was inconvenient to drive. So, it was probably, I don't know, 2/5 of a mile. But it was cold. And then I would say Buffalo after that. I mean, every time I've gone to Buffalo in the winter, it's just been miserable. Snow everywhere.
The Aud and now KeyBank Center, they're right on the Niagara River, right on the western tip of Lake Erie. So you're getting the wind. And I used to live down there. But by the way, just one point before we go to the pre-show with Russ here was I always remember the Met Center in it was Minneapolis. It wasn't in St. Paul, right? It was in Minneapolis, right?
Yeah, for sure.
They had those weird. They had their colors were gold, green, and white, and their seats. Like every arena has a section of like golds and reds and blues. They had multicolored seats in the same sections. They had a green seat, a gold seat, a white seat. It was like, I think it would give somebody an epileptic fit if they saw that game. What, Russ?
No, just the epileptic fit more part.
Oh, it's like a Wang Chung video. Go ahead, start the pre-show.
So, interestingly enough, with the NHL All-Star Game coming up, I saw a post that I really hadn't really thought about. So, we talked about the baseball All-Star Game a lot, and we still think that that's the best. Believe it or not, and I'm sure we all watched it, in 1983, the All-Star Game at Comiskey, when Fred Lynn hit a grand slam, that is the only grand slam in Major League Baseball All-Star history.
Off of Atlee Hammaker, wasn't it?
I don't know if it was. It sounds right, but I don't know.
I think it was Atlee Hammaker because he was San Francisco.
Yes, it is Hammaker. Yeah.
But I don't know why the hell I remember that. But
that's good.
It was on Lefty on Lefty. I remember that.
Yeah, but
that's
again,
weird.
Think about that. Like that's 100 and something All-Star games.
Yeah, that's weird.
One grand slam, guys have played it. Vince Scully and Joe Garagiola did the call, which is really a great combo if you think about it. But like I just, you never think that you were watching it then, like that's the only one, and it would never happen again.
And coincidentally, Russ, I don't know if you saw it on Twitter, but Fred Lynn just had double knee replacement surgery. And I mean, there are certain things that I don't mind seeing on social media, but seeing a picture of Fred Lynn, like after the surgery of like they had like his two legs there and the incisions. It's like, okay, I didn't need to see that. Thanks, Fred. I mean, but yeah,
I gotta tell you, Fred's a delight though. I interviewed him for a book, my Baseball Best Rookies book, and he just still loves the game. Like, he's fun to talk to. He loved his career. He's got nothing negative to say. He had no idea where his Rookie of the Year award was. He was like, it could be out in my garage. Like, I don't even know. Like, it's just but he's a fun, because if you remember, like, there are few rookies that have ever had the impact he had. If you think about it, like, it was unbelievable the impact he had.
Yeah,
I mean the Rice Lynn combination, like, I mean, that was just fun, for sure. The thing about knee replacements, it's so surprising. I mean, really, I just marvel at the advances in medicine. My son-in-law's father had a knee replacement. The surgery was at 7 o'clock in the morning, and he was sitting at his kitchen table having lunch at noon. Like, they just move you through. It's just routine. Like, they do, 6 or 7 of them a day now, a doctor will. And, it's just, they go in, cut it out, put you in the replacement, bolt it back together. They get you up and walking, and you're sitting at your table. I mean, he really was eating lunch at his table by noon. So
yeah, no, it seems like over the last 30, 35, 40 years, whenever there's like a major surgery, they try to get the patient out of bed or out of the hospital when reason. And I don't know if whether they think, obviously they think it's beneficial. I know that my father had like quintuple bypass, and the next day they had him walking in the hallway, because they want
you to walk. I mean, that's my mother's had it. And the big thing is the quicker, and even with my own knee surgery that I had to do like 6 months of rehab, the quicker they get you bending and up and walking, the better you are. And that's what they want.
Well, I just compare that to, the tales from athletes I've interviewed who had, double knee replacement or hip replacement, say decades ago, or, at least 1 decade ago. The experience now is completely different. I wouldn't certainly say it's a walk in the park for anybody, but I just think it's, a better situation than it was, even 10 years ago.
Yeah, they last longer, but it's funny. There is still an expiration date. Like, if you get a replacement, it's not going to last forever. It's going to go like 15 years, maybe 20 if you're lucky, and then you're going to have to get it done again.
Well,
Funky's right, and Bobby Orr could have used.
I was just going to say, one in each sport. Bobby Orr in hockey, Mickey Mantle in baseball, maybe Larry Bird or Bill Walton in basketball, because Bird had his career was shortened because of the back problems. Walton had a number of injuries. Gale Sayers.
Yeah, I would give it to Joe Namath over Gale Sayers. That's me.
Yeah,
Joe Namath had like multiple bad knee surgeries.
I don't know though. I mean,
but Gale Sayers is a good one too.
Yeah, I've said in my lifetime, in terms of dynamic presences in a sporting arena, Vita Blue was so dominant as a pitcher that one season. I've never still seen nothing like it. He was more dominant than Denny McClain when he won 31 games, but Vita Blue was almost unhittable. I mean, if you go look at his numbers, it's just amazing.
Yeah, we used to argue Vita Blue and Seaver for a while in my neighborhood. So
and Sayers, the year he came up was unbelievable. Like, every time he touched the ball, you just thought he's gone.
But just think about Namath though. The injury first occurs in college, and he was an actual scrambling quarterback in college. Couldn't scramble anymore by the time he got to the NFL. Has 2 or 3 knee surgeries, even after winning the Super Bowl, and still was living off of really just his arm, and still threw for an amazing amount of yards and touchdowns, even though kids of today want to like trash his numbers, they don't realize.
Mike Bossy. Yeah.
The reason I would do it for Sayers is we didn't expect, with the exception of Fran Tarkington and a couple of others, we didn't really expect quarterbacks to run back then. So I'm not sure we would have. I mean, certainly the elusiveness would have been better, but
yeah, imagine if he could have just gotten away from, guys chasing him, and in those days really trying to kill you. He would have thrown for a lot more yards, and he threw for a ton anyhow.
Yeah, when I saw the Pro Bowl discussed on two-hand touch, I thought, how is that any different than today's game for the quarterback? I mean, the quarterback is such a sacred cow now. Like, you really cannot touch him.
Well, I'm waiting for them to legislate out, Kev. Now you've had Josh Allen and Brock Purdy both hurt in very similar ways, where the defensive lineman comes in and they're trying to swat the ball away and one tears his UCL, the other one strains his UCL. Purdy's going to have Tommy John surgery. I mean, I'm waiting for them to sort of protect the quarterback from that happening. It's like, like at a certain point, they are football players. You have to allow them to be hit.
In the 70s, like, guys would be hanging off of Bradshaw. Like, I mean, it wasn't like they just went to sack him. They went to, like, totally
maim him. Yeah. Let me ask you, who's having Tommy John? Purdy is?
Well, they said that the UCL was torn completely. So
I didn't hear it was Tommy John. So he won't be ready for next year, or
they said it's close.
They said 6 months. They said 6
wow.
months.
That's why. Yeah, the point I was going to make about now I've kind of lost it about
Dale Sayers.
No, it was about the way they're going to protect the quarterbacks. I don't know. Like, there's certainly logic to protecting the quarterbacks. I mean, they're the game. Especially now that the running backs are just an afterthought. Like we used to say all the time, well, you run to set up the pass, which was true, but now it is like really true. Like they mix in a run almost out of obligation, just to keep the linemen, kind of honest. But I mean, we make it to the point where if they're in that little bubble, you can't,
Well, that's the irony, and I think what's wrong about the way they protect the quarterback. So they protect the pocket passing quarterback. They don't protect the running quarterback. Because the minute the quarterback starts to run, then he's under the same rules as a running back.
Yeah, they let him slide, though.
Yes, unless they slide, and then if you touch them, then you're going to get the 15-yard penalty. Or
you can do more. You can rough up a quarterback more when he's running.
Or if you push Mahomes out of bounds, he was already out of bounds, but that was a stupid play. But Josh Allen, he runs like a running back. He runs upright. So does Jalen Hurts, and they get slammed. They get destroyed. So
so here's my basic point. If you are like Josh Allen and you're allowed to run just multiple quarterback sneaks and whatever, then it's like, you know what? You should be able to take anything that the game throws at you, because right there you're putting everything on the line anyhow.
But at a certain point, you're going to have to start. He's going to have to start thinking about self-preservation.
Sure. But I mean, to me that isn't really a hard judgment call for the officials. Like, it's pretty clear when guys are sliding versus when they're just trying to get extra yards. In my book, I mean, it's always a judgment call, but I think for the most part they get that right. When a guy starts to slide, you can't go after him.
And I think they should do away with the quarterback box, because quarterbacks have really gotten away with way too much grounding in the last 2 years. It's actually kind of ridiculous, the amount of intentional grounding that we see that doesn't get called.
Well, the one play in that San Francisco, I think it was in the San Francisco Philadelphia game, where it took them about a minute and a half to call the intentional grounding, because he threw it, and then the punting unit came out, and it was third down, and they said then it was fourth down, and then the punting unit had to come out. It was like, okay, call it. It's like he was in the pocket, he wasn't scrambling.
Because guys now, quarterbacks, especially the smart ones, the minute they see nobody's open, if a guy's coming for them, they're just looking to throw the ball anywhere near where there's a player, and these balls, a lot of them are not even close to catchable.
I mean, that's always been the rule, and I'm totally fine with that. If you want to throw it at a guy's feet,
Right.
I'm totally fine with that. I thought what you were talking about is when they're outside the tackle box, and I wondered. Now I'm just
I'm
maybe
talking about all of it.
yeah. I have no problem with, because I think that's still what it was in the '60s. Guys would throw it at your feet or bounce 1 and 2 bounces. Like that's just part of the game. As long as you're in the neighborhood, it's like the phantom tag at second base. But my question is this, and maybe this is too much, but we know where the hash marks are for football. We know where the ball is going to be. Why can't we just put like a key in there that represents the tackle box where it's a little more obvious? Now the problem is you'd have to do that in 3 spots,
right?
But I mean, I guess you could do that, but then the line would have to go all the way up the field. I don't know. I mean, It would be kind of nutty. But with the lasers, the way we are with lasers and things now, I don't understand why you can't. They were talking about using the backup chains in that game as well.
Yeah.
Like I've often wondered why we don't have laser first downs where it's exact to the thing. And if you could do that, you could also do laser in terms of where the pocket is or the tackle boxes between
just to show you the difference in the game. I saw a quarterback list that they had on ESPN, and I happened to look up Joe Montana compared to Mahomes, and Montana had 243 touchdowns in the regular season. Mahomes already has 190 something. It's unbelievable how close he is just in touchdowns, even to a guy like that. And his record is obscene. Like it's something like 64-16 lifetime. Like it's so that's how much the game has changed.
Well, to me too, the word gamer, which has never really been defined. It's just a feeling that you have if you say a guy's a gamer. But like I don't need to see Mahomes' statistics to know when he makes that play on the high ankle sprain and he gets in the position to win the game. Like, to me, that's what being an exceptional difference-making player is really kind of all about. Like, even if you didn't know what his statistics were and you watched him perform in that game and some of the throws he made and his willingness to get up there, I mean, it's kind of like the Reggie Jackson test when I used to say in terms of the Hall of Fame. You saw Reggie play, you just knew he was a Hall of Famer, even if you didn't know what his statistics were. And that's the same is true in Mahomes, and we see that with other players as well. Like you don't have to know Connor McDavid's statistics if you watched him play just several games and you thought, how can a guy skate at that speed with the puck and make a play? So because we've seen plenty of guys who are faster than lightning, but they can't make a play at that speed, or they can't
that's the key, is to convert.
Yeah. So anyway, Mahomes is quite special to say the least.
All right, let's get started with the show. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, February 3rd, 2023.
I'm Anthony Mangione from Sunrise Philly Magazine.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. So we're entering the All-Star weekend, All-Star festivities, all the different contests and competitions. I'll say this. I will watch the fastest skater and the hardest shot, and I won't watch the game, because the hardest skater and the fastest shot is entertaining to me, and the game isn't. But I'm in the minority. I mean, I realize that, Kev. It's like, but
I don't think you're in the minority in terms of wanting to watch the game. I just think, your attitude about that it's not a good thing.
Right.
It's just short-sighted. Like this is a major event for the league, and a lot of kids will be in the stands and they will enjoy, and it gives you a chance. I was just on a radio show and they asked me that same thing, and I say what I always say, you got to view it as the annual NHL convention, and everybody shows up, they meet, you get to talk to the players about the trends and issues of the game. A bunch of people, many of whom don't know much about hockey, show up. They see the personalities of the players in that style of game. You lack intensity, but you get a feel for who these people are by how they play and move things around and the showmanship that they have. So I think it's definitely a worthy event, but I would never disagree with you that the game itself is it's not our cup of tea.
No, Anthony.
No.
Dreadful is the word that I come up with, but that's just me.
I mean, dreadful is such an easy word that rolls off your tongue, Michael.
Yeah, it just yeah. I got some reaction from my comment about that. I because I actually do think at what point does the misery kick in for Mike and whatever it is we're watching, or when he's got something to complain about. And two of my faithful viewers come in. He goes, I watched the game right after that, and I did the exact same thing. At what point here is Mike going to be, this is unwatchable, or I hate the referees? Or something.
Kevin, if they show Niagara Falls, that's usually a good trigger.
Yeah, that's a starting point.
Yes, but somebody in this video chat, I won't say who, Ross, posted a picture of Niagara Falls flowing when the Bills were losing.
It wasn't meant for you, Mike. That was meant for somebody.
That wasn't meant for me. Sure.
Wasn't meant for the guy who doesn't live by Niagara Falls. So.
Now, Russ, right now I would have to say I would like to be in Florida because it's 4 degrees here. And I'm sure it's like 70 and it's beautiful in sunrise, but honestly, I wouldn't look forward other than like tonight. I mean, the skating, the shooting.
I'll watch the skills.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But this Atlantic versus Metro versus it just.
I mean, also you have to remember this, Mike. Like I was in Florida. Kevin may have been there too, like a decade ago.
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
and so you get great content there because the players are relaxed. You could talk about other things and really fill your notebook, as a cliche term, but you really can get some great quotes and players are more relaxed. They do have fun. They have their families there. Like I could tell you at Florida, actually, when they were having the card show, and I think it was back then, it was in the game that was the sponsor. And Brodeur was walking around with his kids, looking at the cards, buying cards. That's the kind of stuff that I think Mike is missing out on. If he could experience that, might change his mind a little.
Well, next year I may not miss out on it because the reports are that the All-Star game next year is going to be in Toronto, which I don't think they've had one for
probably many years.
Easily 25 years.
Covering for over 20, they haven't had it.
Yeah.
They had something there. Did they have a draft? Is that what it was?
They had a draft.
They had the draft in
2002.
After their picks, everybody left the arena.
Oh, would you stop?
It is so true.
Oh, God.
Would you stop for crying out loud?
It's the truth.
They stayed for
Kevin, another trigger point for Mike's misery is the minute Russ opens his mouth.
I'm just speaking the truth. That's it.
Well, the odd couple. There are odd couples.
I was at that draft, and Russ, I stayed, so I don't care about anybody else.
You were the one.
I was the one.
I agree with Kevin's description of it being the NHL convention, though.
Yeah.
Like the draft is sort of like the summer confab, but there's more. There's just more of a seriousness to it, and obviously league business is being conducted in this case. Whereas I think the All-Star game, a lot of the ads are what new product potentially is. Like for example, I just saw Sarah Nurse's ad commercial, and she's going to be wearing a new set of CCM skates that they're ready to roll out there. And that's really, to me, a lot of cases where what the All-Star game kind of is in that circumstance. It is a convention. It's an opportunity to promote the game as a product, but also the products that are part of the game too.
Yeah, and you gotta if you're going to be in the media and be effective at your job, you got to pay some homage to the idea that things need to be done to pay the bills. And this is a really big event for them because of that. And but as a journalist, Russ is right on the numbers on the pregame media event where you get 30 some of the top stars in the game that you can talk to, for several minutes each and in small groups. I mean, usually the scrums, if it's someone with a hot button topic that you got to talk to them about, there might be 20, but for the most part,
Jaromir Jagr, I think it was in Dallas, Kev. Jaromir Jagr walked in. He wasn't at the availability, and then he walked in a back door with literally like 10 minutes to go in availability for the media scrum. And we noticed him in the far corner of the room.
Yeah, well, but for the most part, you get these guys with 4 or 5, and if you wait them out, you can get down to 1 or 2. So, and usually there's 5 or 6 topics that that have come up in the first half of the season that it's a great opportunity to get everybody's take. I mean, I don't know what they would be this year. Maybe people are asking them about Provorov and those kinds of issues, and maybe they're talking about the tightness of the race. But there's always
one fun thing that came out that Ilya Sorokin is the godfather of Igor Shesterkin's kid. Like that came out. And it's like, now Islander Ranger fans may not like that, but those guys have been, in hockey together for a very long time. They've been friends and competitors for a very long time, and it goes to that degree. And I think those kinds of things that you can find out there are fun.
Yeah, for sure. I wonder if that means that Shesterkin is Eastern Orthodox. If you need a godfather.
I would say that's probably that would seem to be likely.
It's pretty much split. I mean, I've said this before, but you can often tell because the Russian Orthodox put the icons in their cubicles. Datsuk, for all the years he was in Detroit, his cubicle looked like a religious shrine. Panarin was another one in Chicago. I don't recall seeing it in New York. When he was in Chicago, I know that was the case. And yet
the guy from Major League had a different setup at his locker.
Yeah, he did. He did. But a lot of the Russian players are atheists. So you came out.
Some of that is familial tradition too, I would think as well. I mean, it's either if you were born in sort of in the Soviet Union, and obviously my in-laws obviously were and my wife were refugees from the Soviet Union in 1992. But yeah, it's kind of like it seems to be either the atheist holdings of what was the Soviet Union, and then the religious fervor that came once the government collapsed. The fervor that I think came out afterwards when there wasn't a government
the return of the fervor.
Came back with
and something else just triggered. So in Montreal, I have a picture, and it was myself and Natalia Anthony that caught all the Russians got together and took a picture of themselves, and I think it was like the Russian 5 of that All-Star game, and it was that was a point where they wanted to do that. They wanted that moment in time, and that kind of stuff is fun.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony, the religious fervor that came over Russia after the wall fell can only be illustrated by the fact that they made Tsar Nicholas II a patron saint of the Russian Orthodox Church. I mean, that's how it bounced back. The guy who was the despot from almost as bad as Stalin in the minds of a lot of Russian people. He was accepted as a saint.
Well, that's what happens, Michael. Especially when you're under a government and a regime. And also, it's a matter of the perspective of, living under that in terms of we look at it, but others don't necessarily look at sometimes at there was protections, especially for those who were Jewish. There was a lot of anti-Semitism that happened right after the government collapsed. One of the reasons why my in-laws left Russia and came to the States is because they felt like they were in danger. So there's so many layers to this that you can really kind of get through with regards to how, the reaction is to those things. So.
Now, I came up with a little bit of a game, and we'll be doing this Monday, Wednesday, Friday of next week when we have Kevin on the show. We're going to take each division, and we're going to project some, reasonable trades. Trades that we think are in the realm of possibility. They may not happen, but they would address a certain area for these particular teams that they need. Something that might be that would be in the realm of being cap compliant, things of that nature. So I divvied them up We'll start with Russ. You give us your Vancouver trade.
My Vancouver one is simple. Damon Severson for Brock Besser. And, of course, that's on the condition that Vancouver can sign Severson, but they would know that ahead of time.
Right.
Severson played out in that area with Kelowna. They need a defenseman. They're looking to get rid of Besser. The Devils definitely, if they couldn't get Timo Meier, would look for a big-time scorer, and they have a little term on him. I think it works for everybody because there's no way the Devils are re-signing Severson.
No, I think that what Russ just said, Kev, is the key. If something falls through and they can't get Meier, a Besser would be a plan B that would make sense for them.
Yeah, and I like the trade, but only if it's a sign and trade. Like I think the Devils would have to sign him, and then
okay, maybe
which
that's
is
true.
more. Leaving it to chance. I just don't see that happen.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, if it's a sign and trade, it's a better.
Yeah, that's a better deal because they desperately need defense. The Canucks do, so makes sense to me.
Anthony, the thing is that clearly Vancouver is looking for blue line help because it came out after the Horvat deal that there was some talk between them and Boston, and that one of the players that they wanted in the deal for Horvat was Brandon Carlo, and that was a no-go for Boston.
Yeah. And that's expected again. Boston, Carlo, I think, is a very key component to their blue line. So that would have been a non-starter for me as well if I was Boston's general manager.
Right now, I'll go with my Calgary deal, and it's sort of been hopping out there the last week or so, and I think it's realistic. And that's James Van Riemsdyk going to the Flames. I would say that the Flyers would have to retain 50% to bring his salary down to he's at 7.5, so it would be 3.75.
Yeah.
And to the Flames for a 2024 second round pick. Anthony, what would you think of that deal in terms of its realism?
I think it's a possibility. I'm sure Philly would probably prefer the 2023 since they don't have a 2023 second round pick. But then again, you could use that deal potentially to if you're able to get yourself into the second round. That could be a chip on close to the draft where you may be able to flip that in order to get into a second round pick. So that's kind of to me that would have to be the pathway for that to work. And again, it comes down to need at that point for Calgary where they're at. But I could see that. We know the history, obviously, as I think Julian McKenzie and Charlie O'Connor had mentioned. Kadri being in Calgary, he's obviously been a former line mate with JVR. So and in a depth situation, it could certainly work. So I think that's a possibility. Yeah, if they think they can get a second round pick, and even at the 2024, even if it's one that they keep or package to try to get into a 2023.
Right, that's where maybe that 2024.
That's the pathway.
I'm going to say I'm not going to make it that deal only because I don't like the second round pick. I think taking back $3.75 million at this stage is it's going to prevent you from making any other deal. If you're going to make me take back $3.75 for that kind of player on a rental, then maybe I'm offering a third and a fourth. I'm not giving that second. I mean, really the analytics have taken over to the point that one of the discussions always in the office now is the probability of landing a player with that pick.
Right.
The probability of a second is significantly higher than the third, even though the second isn't very high.
Right.
No, and I think this year you could tweak the second a little bit, like maybe by a few, by a percent or two.
Maybe make it
conditional. I was going to say conditional, possible.
Yeah, I would not. Yeah, I don't see them giving up a second for Van Riemsdyk. I think he'll move for like a third, and maybe a third and a fourth, or third and a fifth, something like that.
Well, I factored in the salary retention as part of it. That's why, and
I don't think that's enough, though. You're still paying. So
they probably have to eat. And Kevin's right in this circumstance that Philadelphia would have to eat a higher percentage of the remainder of the deal.
Well, they can only
and you never know if they've taken on a good chunk of it in terms of retention, then maybe at that point you could talk Calgary into it.
It's 50% max, so that's the most that they.
Yeah, so in this circumstance,
so unless you're trading them through a third team.
Well, that's that would be a point if they could do that, but then that's the cost will go up then if they do it in a third team. So, but maybe that's so.
Calgary's main motivation here is they're 25th on the power play, 19.1%, and he would be on their first power play, standing at the side of the net like he always does, and he's very effective there. So I think this is a deal that is within the realm of possibility. Kev, how about Anaheim?
Yeah. Okay. I've got my Anaheim trade is I'm sending Klingberg to Seattle, which has long been rumored as someone that they were interested in. But I refuse, if I'm Seattle, to give up a first-round pick. I know that there aren't enough teams to take care of all the available players. I've done the math, as some of the general managers have pointed out to me, although that math changed when Mark Stone, went down as well. So, what I say to them is, I will give you the equivalent of 2 second-round picks. I'm going to give you the second-round pick this year, and then Yanni Nyman, who was their second-round pick last year, who's a 6'3" Finnish player who's got 10 goals this year in the Finnish league. And I think that's enough for Klingberg, and I think ultimately Anaheim will do that. I think they'll like Nyman. He's got a little bit of size. And I think Seattle benefits. I mean, they've been much better. And now all of a sudden, they were thinking, I hope we get in the playoffs. Now they're thinking, could we win a round?
Yeah, they need a guy like Klingberg for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, I think the deal works for both teams, even though, I think Anaheim hoped they were going to get a first. So
I think that Anaheim is going to be shooting for a conditional first. If they put conditions on it where Seattle gets to the conference final, then it becomes the first. Then I think that's probable. But he's still probably the best power play quarterback, offensive defenseman in the market right now. I mean, Shattenkirk is a step below. There are a couple other guys who are out there, Gostisbehere, but he's injured. So I think Verbeek is going to be driving the market to get a first in some way in that.
It's going to be hard though. His numbers aren't good enough for a first, but people know what he can do.
I think Mike's creative idea of the conference final, because the likelihood of Seattle getting the conference final isn't high, so maybe you would do that if you do that. But I think, to be honest, I think Ron Francis is going to draw the line. He's not going to give up that first round pick, because that 23 is just that draft class, from all accounts, including our own Russ Cohen, is very good. So,
okay, I'll go next. I have the LA Kings, and I look at the LA Kings, and we know that the goaltending market is thin. Right now, Quick is, probably in the last year of his career, although maybe he signs a 1-year deal, or, to be a backup, but I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
And he can sign with the Leafs next year.
Yeah, there you go. And Phoenix Copley is right now having a Cinderella season, but I don't know how what they know, if they know when the pumpkin is going to appear.
Is there Jack Campbell, Michael?
Well, yeah, there you go. But
see, I'm the one who causes trouble, and then Anthony says that. Okay.
I didn't say I wasn't part of the fuse lighting here.
Now, interestingly, the chatter that is coming out of Ottawa in the last 48 to 72 hours is that Cam Talbot may be on the block before the deadline. Now he's a rental, and I could see the LA Kings having an interest in him based on how much it's going to cost. Now I look at them and I see their defense is an even bigger problem. So I have 2 players going to the Kings: Travis Hamonic, veteran right-hand shot defenseman, and Cam Talbot for a 2nd and 4th round pick. The 2nd in 2023, the 4th in 2024.
I like it.
That's a doable deal.
Yeah, I like the deal from both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, and in spite of all the talk, and I shake my head, but I think that it's tied to the fact that they want this team to be competitive through the rest of the year because of the sale of the team. There's talk about the Senators looking for a right-hand shot defenseman, even though They're really not in a realistic position to compete for a playoff spot. But I think they're going to be buyers and sellers. I think they're going to sell their rentals, trade Tyler Mott, trade Austin Watson, trade Hamonic, trade Talbot, but then bring guys in. I think that's going to be sort of the posture of Pierre Dorian before the deadline. So I think right now with the Kings tied for first place in the Pacific, that's where Rob Blake is going to go, is short-term ads. So
I think that's a realistic appraisal, though, of the value. I mean, they're not going to get a first,
no,
but a second. They're going to get two players who help them. So.
Russ, give us your Vegas idea.
All right, so my Vegas one's a haymaker, and so for Vegas,
I like it already.
It's well within what Vegas likes to do. So hit it.
They're going to trade Nicholas Hague and their 2023 first-round pick and their 2024 first-round pick to Arizona for Jacob Chikrin.
Well, they can't do that because I'm trading him to Boston.
You got it in first, Russ.
I don't know. Maybe that would get it done. That's double first-round picks.
Whose fax machine breaks first, though?
That's a good question. It might be a matter of who gets the fax first.
You're paying more than I am, but
but that's what they need. They need another rock solid defenseman who can move the puck, who could score a little bit. They don't have that.
The funny thing is, I'm surprised they have their first round picks in.
I know. I had to look it up.
I thought the 76ers have less first round picks than the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Arizona, I'm tempted by the back-to-back. So you're doubling up on your first-round picks over the next 2 years. I don't know what's the 24 draft like. Russ?
I don't know yet. I don't.
Yeah, but but still, I mean, that's this year's draft, and and you get back a guy to plug in your lineup. I mean, I think that's better than mine. Although I'm going to throw mine out there anyway, but. So.
Yeah, throw Brandon Brisson in the deal, and you got a deal. Okay, so we did LA and we did Calgary for me. So I'll go with Seattle, and I think that they need to jumpstart their offense a little bit. The Klingberg move, if they did that.
I think they could also go for a little bit of defensive depth too, Mike. I think there's a little bit of thinness beyond that. So I did one suggested deal before you jump, because I do want to get at least one in here. It's possible. I think they could potentially ring up the Flyers for Justin Braun but it'll be for a very, very small amount. It'll be like a 2024, 2025 lower round pick. That'll give them potentially just that fail safe veteran that you always see a team try to get at the deadline, in Philadelphia just give him that opportunity. So
that's veteran depth. I mean, that's possible, but I was trying to go a little higher than that and go with a forward who's a scoring forward, and I came up with Max Domi going to Seattle for a 2024 third round pick, because I don't think that Domi. Maybe there'll be a little more competition because a lot of teams are looking for rental forwards, but the $3 million salary, unless Chicago retains 50%. And I don't know if they're going to retain on Domi, because they may have to retain on Kane and Taves.
Yeah, they're not going to retain. I think that's fair.
Yeah, so I think what do you think of that return, Kevin, and that fit for Seattle?
Seems really reasonable to me. You're being so reasonable today in your deals. But I mean, that seems like a realistic deal. You're not going to get even a second round pick for Max Domi, but you're going to get something.
Right.
Third round pick makes sense.
And I'll even throw in a Seattle bonus. They will sign and bring in and work out Chris Vandevelde, who's only 35 years old, for the league minimum.
Yeah. Well, and the one thing, even though there's been a lot of discussion in terms of all the opposites about the probability of getting a player now with those picks. It's a higher probability when you accumulate a lot of picks. So, even like a lot of PR people put out, because the GMs tell them to do, put out the releases saying, we got 10 picks this year, we got 11.
Unless you draft only defensemen like the Islanders do, then you limit yourself again.
But, if you have a lot of picks, the hope is, you roll enough dice, you're going to get what you
I think
want.
in this draft, if you do that based on the depth of it, that it would work out.
Okay, the Arizona, Kev, give us your Chikrin.
Well, this is my deal. Boston Hockey Now has pushed the idea that Boston is revisiting. They lost in the Horvat sweepstakes. They're interested in Larkin, but they also like the idea of really strengthening that already good defense. And Chikrin intrigues them. Sweeney has liked him for a while. They had a discussion before it was too much, but they go back with Grzelcyk, a first-round pick, Matthew Poitras, who is a Guelph second-round pick, and a fourth-round pick. So 4 assets, not 4 first-rounders, but guy that can play now to go back, play with Chikrin, older, but still has 2 years left on his contract. So, I think it will make Arizona think about it a little bit, but I like the Vegas deal better.
I like the Vegas. I like the Vegas deal better. And Anthony, the team that least needs another number 1 defenseman. They already have a number 1 in Lindholm and a number 1 in McAvoy, and now they're going to have a number 1 in Chikrin. I mean, my God.
That's again this.
Yeah, but one sentence. Bergeron is 37 and Krejci is 36. So, their chips are all in,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I think Kevin just basically said what I was going to say is like, you're going to do this because you're trying to get, you've come up short several times since the days of Zdeno Chara. This has to be the big moment here for them. So I could easily see them making that big swing.
Yeah. The final deal is Edmonton. And I know that Elliot Friedman mentioned Edmonton having a interest in this particular player. And you have to factor in the fact that Edmonton can't really make a big swing. They don't have the cap room. There has been talk of them being interested in a depth defenseman from the Blues, Nico Mikkola. He's only making $1.5 million, so they could probably fit him under the cap. I have him going to the Oilers for a 2023 third. And I think, he's not an offensive defenseman. He's sort of like along the lines of a Yanni Hakanpää, Russ. He's like a, big, tough defenseman, not going to score a ton, but that's sort of what Edmonton needs. They have too many Tyson Berries, and they need somebody who's rock solid on the blue line.
I have an Edmonton deal too.
Okay.
Tyler Bertuzzi going to the Edmonton Oilers for with Yzerman retaining half to put his salary down to $2.375 for a second and third round pick.
I mean, he would definitely he would extend the depth of that forward group because
I mean, suddenly now they have Kane, they have Hyman, and they've got Bertuzzi. Now,
that would be good. It would give him secondary scoring, another guy that plays similar to.
Are there complications, Kevin, with regards to Bertuzzi with
yes?
I can't figure that out. My colleague at Detroit Hockey Now, Bob Duff, is a Canadian, and he can't figure it out either. Bertuzzi's a Canadian. They've relaxed all the rules. So what is the issue?
Yeah, I mean, I know that Elliot spoke to it on his last podcast, and I couldn't really grasp where the problem was, but he was.
We haven't either.
He was being told that there is a problem in terms of cross-border situations. I was like, but I don't know. I mean, I guess all the players and all the Canadian teams are vaccinated, and they seem to think that there's a problem going back and forth and back and forth. I don't know. I'm not. I don't know what exactly it is, but they did say that might be a complicating factor in terms of him getting traded to Toronto, and that obviously that's going to be the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that too, but we don't know what it is. I know Americans can go over if they're not vaccinated, so why wouldn't a Canadian be able to do that?
Just curious. It's just
But on Monday we'll do the Central Division, and then Wednesday we'll do the Metro, and Friday we'll do the Atlantic. We'll leave the best for last.
I did want to mention, Mike, the contract for Dylan Strome is great for the Capitals. Here's a guy that's at times was playing for Backstrom as their top line center, but he's really going to play 2 or 3 there long term. But again, why Chicago ever let him out of their grasp makes no sense.
I know why.
Well for them, it wasn't like he stunk for them. And you gave the Capitals now a guy for the next 5 years that's getting better. Like you're going to get him in his prime now.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense really when you think about it. They're rebuilding.
It makes
I know.
No, but okay.
He's 25.
It makes perfect sense for what they're doing this year. They didn't want to spend money in a year that they were planning on tanking. That's why they didn't qualify.
It makes no sense, Mike.
No,
if you're rebuilding, you keep guys 25 and under.
Sure, right. But I mean, they didn't want to keep these guys around for 2/3 of the season, qualify them, and then trade them at the deadline. They wanted to be bad, and they wanted to be bad from the beginning of the season.
But you would still. They would still be bad with Dylan Strome, but he would be
they were going to be bad with or without Dylan Strome.
But he would be a foundational piece for them. Like, you're talking about a top 6 center in this league, and the Capitals get him for $5 million for 5 years. They signed him 1-year deal for 3.5 because some teams, didn't want to.
It's so hard to find centers.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Yeah, it really is in terms of getting good quality pivots.
This deal makes perfect sense for the Capitals because Backstrom. I mean, I can't.
That's the key there. Backstrom is we're closing in on the end line for Backstrom, so that makes perfect sense in that regard. Yeah.
So now they have Kuznetsov and Strome 1-2.
Yep.
When Backstrom retires, who knows if it's this year or next year?
Just hand it to him. Like, it's just like it's amazing how easily some teams will give up on players.
Okay, I don't know whether Thomas Boyle was pulling our leg about this rumor about Lucic going to the Rangers. I think he's pulling our leg.
I haven't heard anything about that.
So we'll just leave it there. Yeah, Lucic as a replacement for Ryan Reeves. Okay, so a good show, guys. We'll be back on Monday with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast for Anthony Mangione, for Russ Cohen, for Kevin Allen. I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.